Our top focus on WION at this hour, top leaders of Pakistan, Türkiye and Saudi Arabia. They are converging in Jeddah, where they are expected to sign a trilateral defense agreement on Friday.
Sources say the agreement is aimed at establishing a unified security architecture across the three countries. According to a source close to the Saudi military and government, the agreement had been under discussion for months, but recent regional developments have accelerated the process.
Now, the move comes as regional powers seek to strengthen security ties amid the ongoing war between the United States and Iran, which has drawn in Gulf states and disrupted shipping through the Strait of Hormuz and the Red Sea. Another source has confirmed that the agreement is scheduled to be signed on Friday.
Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is expected to hold talks with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif in the Red Sea city.
Sharif and Pakistan's Army Chief Asim Munir arrived in the kingdom on Thursday for a visit lasting until Saturday. While Erdogan is expected to visit on Friday, reports suggest that the foundational terms of the trilateral defense framework, they have been finalized, communicated and approved by Islamabad, Ankara and Riyadh.
The three countries have been the subject of months of speculation over the formation of a strategic military alliance. Pakistan has sought to mediate efforts to end the US-Iran war, while Türkiye has played a diplomatic role in negotiations aimed at ending the war in Gaza.
Saudi Arabia and Pakistan announced a bilateral defense pact in 2025, a move that drew global attention as Pakistan remains the Muslim world's only nuclear-armed state. According to reports, the new trilateral framework builds on the existing Pakistan-Saudi mutual defense arrangements. Sources say the accord will establish a formal framework for joint military exercises, defense technology transfers, defense industrial cooperation and intelligence sharing.
We are now being joined by Colonel Richardson from Washington, D.C., his former military and civilian advisor at U.S. Department of State and senior fellow at the Atlantic Council and senior advisor for the Jones Group as well. Welcome to the broadcast, Colonel. We know that last September, Saudi Arabia signed a defense pact with Pakistan. Now, Turkey wants in. It also brings in its own NATO experience. Does this mean this is a new birth of a new regional axis altogether?
Well, good to be with you, and thanks for the question, which is a fascinating one. I think the simple answer is no. It's nothing is so simple in West Asia as the nature of alignments and the depth of alignments. So these three countries, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Türkiye, do have a lot in common. None of them want to see a sort of a Middle East, a greater Middle East, and South Asia dominated by Iran and the Iranian threats in the case of the Gulf and the Middle East, or external powers, and that could be India, that well, actually not external in the case of India, but the case of Pakistan not being dominated by India, in the case of Türkiye not being dominated by its own ally, the United States. I think all three of these are mid-sized countries that have issues of establishing and maintaining defense autonomy. So they're all status quo powers in a sense, which is the grounds for hope. But all of them have reason to fear developments over the last year, 2 years, 3 years in the region. And I think that's why we see a convergence. I don't think it's so much an axis or an emerging strategic doctrine as a sort of common interest among all three of these in preserving the status quo regionally and pooling resources to oppose the threats that they perceive in common.
Right, Colonel Alson, and if you look at the larger geopolitical context and the timing of when it has happened, Saudi Arabia has found itself in the crosshairs of regional conflict. And now with this defense agreement, if the kingdom comes under direct military threat, do you think that would also create some sort of practical obligations for Turkey and Pakistan going ahead?
Well, I think what we learn from, especially in the case of Türkiye, is that the formal obligations don't mean as much as the personal obligations. And by that, I mean, Turkey has learned the lesson. For instance, when it was shooting down Russian planes over Syria in 2015, NATO did not come immediately to its response or to its respond by coming to its defense. And yet when other countries threatened, for instance, its ally Qatar, in 2018, 2019. Türkiye, despite despite the presence of like formal obligations, they still went to the defense of Qatar. So I think what we're seeing here is highly personal relations between the leaders of these countries, and the idea that without a formal mechanism similar to NATO, which in some ways is overly bureaucratic, but it's a real sort of joining of interests and a statement of will, common will on mutual self-defense, but also defense industry, which is quite interesting here. The theme that runs through all of this from the perspective of Washington is that nobody really trusts Washington's security guarantees at this point, right? So if you're either Saudi or Turkey or Pakistan, all of which are formal allies of the United States in one way or the other, they feel the need to band together for support rather than trusting on an external American guarantee, either for direct defensive support or for mediation that will protect their interests.
Right, Colonel, as you rightly said, the countries, it looks like they're seeking an alternative to Washington at this moment. And let's talk about India even, has spent years turning the Gulf into one of its closest strategic neighborhoods, its alliances. Now Pakistan is trying to add security to that equation. It's seeking an influence in the Gulf region. It is even seeking a permanent security role there. What does that mean for New Delhi?
Yeah, so I think this is multipolarity at work. Right. And so in many ways, New Delhi benefits from multipolarity. It's a not currently a P5 member of the United Nations, but obviously a global power of the first order. So India has a great regional, extra-regional global reach. And yet it also benefits from not having a war or a world that is governed by just two powers, an Eastern power and a Western power. It's truly a situation in which multipolarity functions. India is an agile country. It can function in multipolarity. India is in a competition with Pakistan here, and let's be grateful that this competition is a diplomatic one for the most part at this point, although it's had its military dimension. There is no doubt that in the Middle East, the Gulf, and the region that stretches to Europe, there is a competition going on between India on the one hand and Israel and some other countries, Greece, for instance, and then also sort of on an alternative axis, Pakistan, Türkiye, Saudi Arabia, increasingly, maybe Iraq, and some others. Who will be the route to Europe, and who will be the dominant player or axis in those areas? Honestly, from the perspective of Washington, it's okay if both things are true. If both of these groups have some influence, have some power, everybody gets a piece of the pie. But there is no debating the fact that from New Delhi's perspective, you're in a competition now, not just a military competition with Pakistan, but a regional geopolitical competition with a range of states.
Right, Colonel Outzen, of course, we'll have to wait and see how consequential this partnership proves to be and, of course, as compared to the previous regional alliances. But for now, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your perspective with us.
Always good to be with you. Thank you.